Started Backstage. You guys are in for a treat today. We are talking with some of the finalists for PitchIT. We are going to talk about what exactly is PitchIT. If you're not already in the loop, it is something that is happening at IT Nation Connect in about 10 days. So listen, if you do not have your ticket yet, make sure you get your ticket. I'm Jennifer Bleam. I'm the Cybersecurity Sherpa. I help MSP business owners and salespeople unlock their sales genius so they can sell more managed services and managed security easily and profitably. And I am here with a bunch of rock stars. You guys are in for a treat. Sean, let me pass this over to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself in case people don't know, and then we'll go around the horn and we'll get started.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer. Sean Lardo, I'm the evangelist for the ConnectWise economy. Also own the responsibility of the 2022 PitchIT. Probably going to own 2023 PitchIT also. So it's like it's 1 year, one and done. Yeah, so that's all I'm going to say about myself because this isn't about me. I'm going to hand it over to Gene, my good friend Gene Rich, also AKA Clark Kent.
Oh. Yeah, it's Halloween today, man. I had to dress up a little bit, you know.
Yeah, right. You did.
Yeah, good. Okay, so name is Gene Rich. My company that I co-founded is Traceless, and we were the winners last year of the PitchIT contest, and we're working with Vonahi, who's also on the call, who will be the winner of the 2022 PitchIT contest.
I love it.
And there you go, already with the public trash talking. I love it.
That's awesome. So, Jason, please elaborate a little bit further than obviously the winning aspect of it.
Yeah, so I'm Jason Wells. I'm the COO here at Vonahi. So I'm on the leadership team, and so we're excited to be here. Really appreciate it, and gearing up for the final, the final PitchIT here in a little over a week now.
Awesome.
Yes, we're like 9 days. Like technically, it's like 9 days and a couple hours, realistically.
Yes. Right. All right. So everyone is claiming they're going to win. Everybody is claiming they're going to be number one. There can only be one number one. So either Gene or Jason, either one of you, why are you going to walk away with a really big check with a really big dollar figure on it?
I'll jump in and take that, Gene. I think,
yeah.
So when I look at the judging criteria, right? Like I think we have a really strong message in each of the categories, right? So there's this, with our value proposition, we're targeting a very large market. We're disrupting that market with a unique solution. From a team standpoint, we've got a team. We're already executing on our go-to-market strategy, and then, and then our impact to the community. We're giving them the ability to deliver pen testing to the market, and a large portion of the MSP doesn't really have a solution to enable them to do that. And then, I guess we'll talk about our use of funds later probably, but when we launch this V community, we're giving the MSP community the ability to test their own network for free. So overall, I think there's just a massive impact to the market and the MSP market and community that we can, that we can impact, right?
Okay, so I read somewhere largely automated pen testing. So let's talk about that. That has to be an objection that you're expecting to be in the minds of the judges. And so automated pen testing is like, how is that really a thing? Clearly you believe that it is. Help overcome that objection in the mind right now of anybody who's watching.
Okay. So it's typically done, penetration is typically done manually by security experts. That's the way it's been in the market, right? And, there has been a lot of noise in the market about automation, and typically that's a vulnerability scanning company trying to say that they're doing penetration testing, right?
Yes,
and
it is.
So fortunately, our founder, Alton, he's got a decade of experience doing this manually, and he's been able to chain the tools and his logic and his manual processes into automation, and we can deliver a full-scale internal external network penetration test to the market through automation. It hasn't been something that you can do. It is now something you can do. And we've got 250 partners that almost every one of them's run a proof of concept. They've run it side by side with their other security consulting companies, and we're delivering the same results, and we're delivering it much faster and at a way more cost effective And, in the past, those MSP, I was on a demo this morning with an MSP that told us that we are taking the fear and pain out of offering penetration testing for the MSP. So, I would just say, run a proof of concept. We'll prove it to you, right?
I love it. Oh man. And so for any of my clients, my students that are watching, you just watched an objection be handled brilliantly. And so go back and watch that. Don't miss that. That's 3 minutes worth watching just to see we wove a little bit of, sure, it wasn't possible. You're correct. However, because we're amazing and we've been able to capture the brain share, the mind share of the founder, now we've just leveraged technology to make it happen. So I love that. Is that the crux of your unique selling proposition?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, right? So you've got, you've got a market that currently is being served by manual testers. So it's extremely expensive and it's really, really slow, painfully slow, right? So, and that's the end client problem, the SMB problem. And they have this massive need because they're required by compliance requirements, they're required by cyber liability insurance requirements, right? So there's the need. They're asking the MSP to help solve that need. And right now, the MSP can't afford to hire those resources. So they're having to outsource it to a security consulting company, which then means, that there's, it's low referral margin for them, right? Or they just have to pass on that opportunity in general, right? And so because we can automate it, we can drastically reduce the cost. We give them the ability to deliver pen testing without having to hire those resources. And now the MSP can, they're in the market, they can compete in that market. They've got the relationship. Now they can deliver it faster. They can deliver it at a better price point. So, ultimately, we're giving them the ability to create a new, highly profitable revenue stream using our platform.
It's interesting to me because what I'm seeing is a very positive, perfect storm where clearly there is a need for penetration testing. We're seeing how many businesses are being hacked or breached or have an incident. And so that typically means that they haven't done any kind of management of their vulnerabilities or even have any kind of visibility into that. And so that's kind of the first piece. But then there's a labor shortage, and there's a labor shortage that most MSPs can't even do one a month or one a quarter because they don't have the team on hand to do it. And so and then you add in automation to the mix. So this is going to be a fun competition to watch. I like it. Okay. So, Sean, I know you were super instrumental in adding to the concept of PitchIT, having coaches. What was your thought process behind, hey, let's make this a longer process and let's add coaches to that? And then if you could hand this off to Gene just to hear his perspective, because he's been on both sides of the table.
Absolutely. So when I was assigned PitchIT this year, I immediately met Gene right then and there, and has spent a lot of time with Gene. And one of the intentions from ConnectWise side was, we know we want to bring in very good quality vendors, right? That are going to be contributors to the community, to fulfill the 3 promises that Jason McGee put out last year, which is the easier to do business with, invest even more in partner growth, and more innovations faster. So it was one thing to take applications and have people just sort of compete and eventually come to an end result of who wins. But we want to make sure that there's long-lasting success for everybody. And so we created an accelerator program. This year was the first year ever, 16 weeks. And actually, a lot of this was due to my conversations with Gene and things he said that he could have used. He would like to have seen when he was in the program. So I was, taking tidbits from everybody and creating this accelerator program, which actually, our VP of strategy, Tony Thomas, was one of the people that came to me with that. He's the one that signed it to me and said, hey, we need to make sure these people get to learn some different things, different perspectives, whatever. So we created a cameo coach concept for the 16 weeks. So, and by the way, that idea came from watching The Voice with my mother. Let's be honest. I was watching The Voice. I never do really. I was like, this is pretty cool. And also it was March Madness. I was like, how can I do a bracket? But I couldn't really do the bracket. But, so it goes from being The Voice for 16 weeks where they get cameo coaches and they all got to compete for the preliminaries when we did it with the channel program and Matt Solomon's team. And we were able to narrow it down to 3. from 18 to 3. And it was really good because those Cameo coaches represented different factions of your business, from mergers and acquisitions to sales and marketing to integrations to product market fit to even channel operations. And we had some really good people be involved with it, like Amy Luby, Heather Margolis. We brought in Arlen Sorensen. So we had like a lot of A players that know their stuff. And the goal was, again, once we finished that, this is where the coaching came into play for the head coaches. And we brought the 3 coaches, Gene, Jameson West, and Callan Sapien, and they all have been involved in this program as a coach, as a winner, as a whatever. So they all are very well aware of it. And then I figured also to add a little bit more swag. You know, they got some swagger when they talk nonsense, like when Gene just guaranteed victory. And when Jameson West actually said to us last call that he literally let you win, Gene, and help Callan just so that he could later on destroy you both. That's verbatim. That's what he said.
Yep. I was there. I heard that.
Thank you. So all these things all mounted up to not just being a competition, but long-lasting success for everybody included. And that was no matter what, at the end of the day, that was the important part. And these guys all did very well. I put them through the ringer, like every week workshop, and then also webinars every week with all of them live streaming, which a lot of them never did any of these before. So, you know, talk about coming out of your comfort zone. They all had no choice. They got to work on their speak. They got to get some brand awareness, and they got classes. And I think they all liked me at the end, which is weird because I thought we'd have some sort of problems. But
did you say they all got to work on their speak? Is that what you said?
They work on their speak. Yeah.
Excellent. You heard it here first.
Yep. So, and then again, but I'll kick it over to Gene because Gene was a big reason why these guys went through the programs. They went through the program they went through. There was a lot of back and forth and conversations about it. And I, you know, and actually talk about a marriage made in heaven here. Gene is a cybersecurity guy. He's an MSP that started a cybersecurity product and won PitchIT. And I don't know, I just noticed that it says Vonahi Security on the company name. So I couldn't ask for a better matchup, actually. Gene, I'm gonna leave it to you.
Yeah.
Anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like, you know, first it's like really, everyone loves a really good story, right? And I think that that's like the kind of like where Jameson's going with, you know, the story he's telling. So I think it's really like interesting, but I don't think it's really relevant to what's going to happen. But besides that, like, yeah, I think Vonahi is at a place where they're at the beginning of the turning tide. And I think you have that with insurance companies requiring small businesses to do more and but you know, it's like insurance is such a messed up business, right? It's like, hey, you know, take all the risk and we'll make MRR, and then when you have a problem, we'll complain to you and try not to pay you. You know, like, no offense to anyone on insurance, but that's been my experience in America with most insurances. But I think that on the good side for all of us providers, they are starting to get a little bit more serious in their depth of understanding of how to protect a business and what actually matters in that protection. And I think pen testing is a huge part of that, and it doesn't really scale well beyond people, right? And I think that's what's really interesting about what Vonahi's done. Also, you know, a lot of our messaging about what we were focused and why I started Traceless was to protect my own MSP, and I think, you know, their commitment to help the industry by enabling free pen tests for MSPs is pretty incredible. And I think that's, I keep saying this, but I mean it. It's like, it's something that should be funded immediately. And like, I think it's going to help everybody, right? It's like rising tides float all boats or float all ships or whatever it is, right? It's true. Like if we are all more secure as a industry, I think that we're going to be more successful. And, you know, what's neat also, I'll say about the PitchIT contest and, you know, the accelerator and what Sean's really done is, you know, as IT people, it's pretty neat, right? We're on the forefront of technology mostly, right? We're trying to convince small and medium-sized business owners as MSPs to adopt new technology and to keep their current stack where it is. And, Jennifer, as you know, sales, it's hard, right? It's hard to convince people to do that. And, but one of the nice things about it is that we get exposed to new tech. And I think everyone really loves new tech. And I agree that the way that Vonahi is doing it is disruptive. And I think it's new tech. And I think that that's one of the great things about the program is it's bringing all of this new tech to a community that is in the business literally of bringing new tech to their customers. So I think it's been really good, and I'm happy to see the changes and where it's gone this year. Everyone who's been a part of it, I know, has put their heart and soul in it.
So you mentioned the win. You mentioned walking away with the $70,000. That's the first place. Let's just aim for first place. What are you going to do with the $70,000?
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to launch the community, which is going to give the MSP the ability to do internal and external network penetration testing on their own network for free. And so, I mean, pen testing is expensive. We do have MSPs out there that are doing it on themselves, right? But not only do we get to have them eliminate that cost, but pen testing is typically once a year because it costs so much. And so we give them the ability to do it on a up to monthly basis, right? So increase the testing frequency, which allows them to, identify and reduce risk more often, right? And then for those MSPs that aren't doing it at all, I mean, now they can do it. So that's where we're going to invest the resources, right? For, to ensure the onboarding of that, to get the message of the V community out into the marketplace, and to also increase, sales enablement, right? Because, with the community, with giving them the ability to come in and do, the penetration test themselves, they're able to, understand penetration testing, understand how to implement it, how to deploy it, how to view the reports, how to remediate and fix the responses. And then that puts them in a better position that when a client comes and needs a penetration test, they're able to, deliver that quickly and effectively and to the end client.
So inside of that partner, the partner plan, the partner program that you're launching, and this may be a little bit premature, but do you have any plans, or has there been any discussion around marketing enablement for the MSPs, for the TSPs, to be able to use this as a potential prospecting tool? Is that in discussion?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got partners that do that now. So we've got flexible licensing models, so they're able to use the platform, deliver. You're probably not going to use an internal test because you have to get the client. But from an external perspective, they're doing that now and being able to deliver, perform external penetration tests and then use those results to talk to their client base about what they've been able to find. So it's definitely meets the penetration testing need for the SMB, but then it also helps the MSP kind of in that prospecting side of things as well. We currently have sales enablement tools, to help the MSP, whether it's branding data sheets, whether it's statement of works and things like that, helping them build those things, helping them understand what the industry kind of average price point would be for selling it and that sort of thing. And then how they can position, their offering to be competitive.
Awesome. Yeah, I always say if a vendor can somehow tie their solution into lead generation, that they've got a match made in heaven. So I love it.
Yeah.
And so one thing that you're doing, that all of the competitors are doing, is a pre-day. Hold on, we got a couple of comments coming in. All right, so here is a comment that has just come in. I think at times, this is a long one. At times we focus on insurance and compliance and we forget the core values we need to have, keeping the clients secure is a fiduciary that we have. It's a moral commitment. So this adds a tremendous amount of value onto we have a stack or we have a package, which can become a little bit commoditized. So is that the way that you see the market as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, mostly, how penetration testing it's meeting a compliance requirement right now. You can't do much more than that because it costs too much and you're not doing it frequently enough to really build a program that helps, you secure your network, right? So that's another kind of, value that we add in that you're able to do it on a more continuous basis, right? Up to monthly. So now you can run a test, fix things, run another test, make sure that those are fixed. If a new vulnerability or comes out or a new exploit comes out, you're immediately able to, as soon as we get that in the platform, test again, right? And you don't go a year in between tests, right? So it is definitely, we believe you should be doing it more often, and that it should be the go-to way to evaluate vulnerabilities on your network and, and build a remediation process, remediation management process. It's just right now hasn't been cost-effective way to do it. So, it definitely should help reduce, your risk. And then also you do have to meet those compliance requirements, right? So it will do both.
So Sean mentioned the pre-day, that there's going to be a pre-day with the 3 finalists delivering, I believe it's 4 hours of content. So what is your contribution to the pre-day? What are the pieces of that session that you're the most excited about?
Yeah, I think we've, as a group, gotten together and said, if you look at our solutions, they, together allow the MSP to add to their tech stack in a way that doesn't require them to add resources, right? So they can deliver value to their end client without having to add any additional resources using the platform. And then when we started really talking about it, started realizing that there are some connection points, integration points between the platforms. So, we're going to kind of walk through each of our platforms, but show how, you can use them together. And then ultimately it is something that you can, again, you don't have to add new resources, and you can add, a lot of value to your end clients through the use of all 3.
So then the main pieces of the pre-day then are showing how the different solutions fit together, or how MSPs can sell or make money from them. Like, help me understand that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think it's both, right? So it's how the operational efficiency, right? Not having to add new resources, and then the value proposition of each and how they can use those solutions, like ours, right? How you can deliver penetration testing, create a new revenue stream. It syncs in with, the humanized IT platform and how they present end results to the end client, and they've got their solution to do that, right? And we can connect in there, and we become a pillar in their platform and how they talk to MSP. And AlertOps is the same way, right? They become a pillar. They have outputs that the MSP needs to speak to when they're talking to prospects or clients about the value that they're offering to their clients.
So Gene, when you were in the PitchIT competition, did you work with the other finalists and have a pre-day, or is that something that's new this year?
So it's new this year. I think it's like this is the only context in which I will call everyone in the finalist winners. But I think that it's
Wait, can you say it one more time? Say that line one more time, please.
You missed that one. This is the only time context I will use to call everyone who's a finalist a winner.
Okay,
but
Gene, he did not miss that. Just to be super clear, he heard you. He just made you say it a second time.
Yeah, I said it clearly twice. I hope you heard me the second time.
I just want to make sure. We're getting lost in translation. That's all.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying.
It's very contextual. I'm not calling them winners. Just in this context, I am willing to concede that they're winners. Okay.
Yeah, for the placed finalists, but also everyone who's a part of it. It's kind of like you have this community, right? So the Tribu crew was actually across the aisle from us at DattoCon. We were both exhibitors, and Amy and Lucas they were in New York City, so I went down and we hung out. And I think we're finding at Traceless like a lot of bonds with other vendors who are kind of like in the circuit, right? And that's new to me. I obviously have bonds with MSPs, but like the whole vendor circuit, it's like camp, basically, It's like you go to camp like all the time and you see the same people, and or some people call it like carnies, being a carnival. group of people, right? Take your analogy, whichever one you want, but it's a tight group of people. And I think being in this process and being here today and even investing in a pre-day only like forms tighter bonds between everyone who's participating. And again, it helps everybody, like, guess what? Regardless of what happens next week, we all have to grow our businesses, right? Guess what? Everyone has to deal with security as a software company. Guess what? Everyone, it's like you have so much overlap that finding this community between your peers is super important, even when you're competing with them. And I feel like that's what this pre-day event is about. And I think it's been really cool on that side to see everybody get together and make a productive use of that time. And I think that also just shows that everybody who went through this program, it was a program that a lot of people invested heavily their time and energy in to get benefit regardless of the outcome. And I feel like that's a good vibe,
That's amazing. I love, there's a couple of things that you said in there that I love. The concept that the vendors, for the most part in the channel, they do become like family. There is this, of course, you've got your company culture, but then part of the culture are the vendors that are serving the same clients that you're serving. So I love that you're thinking maybe some collaboration opportunities. I've already heard maybe insurance brokers, people that are helping MSPs with insurance. So that's one thing that is an easy add. What else are you exploring on the collaboration side?
You asking me or Jason?
Either one of you.
Anybody? Yeah. So, I mean, we have a standing huddle with another company weekly with the founders, right? So going through like, oh, you're raising money. What's that like? Like little idiosyncrasies of running a business. I mean, I think that even when you have partners, it's lonely at the top, right? Like, so if you're a founder or co-founder of a business, I think that having these other people sometimes to tell you hints, right? Sometimes it's a shoulder to cry on, right? Sometimes it's hey, like I heard about something, so here's a lead, right? I think it's really good.
Awesome.
Let me jump in on this too, real quick. It was one thing. You're talking about a bunch of startups, right? You have a bunch of startup companies that have limited funds, and the funds they have to be very precise, right? I mean, we've all been there, we all lived it. And then when you're going into conferences like IT Nation Connect or DataCon or you name it, or even the smaller ones like ASCII and Channel Pro, it's to be recognized costs a lot of money. It just really does. We all know that. It's the more you spend. I mean, look at the Super Bowl commercials. They spend like a freaking $1 billion for 45 seconds, and it's Pepsi and Coke and Budweiser. Everybody you've known forever, but they still have to, right? So imagine being a company that's starting up and trying to compete against that money. So, back to the whole carnies concept. The reason why carnies were so successful is because they lumped together in groups and they all had various skill sets and they had an attraction. And it was almost like there was something for everybody, but they all band together. Same rules apply in this case. And it's, I've been part of 5 different startups. And that was one of the philosophies I took was let me band together with people that are like-minded, not maybe even competitive to some degree, but not fully. But all know that you have to invest in the exposure of what you guys are doing to get people to even know you're there. Right. And again, if we all get together, we can make a much larger party than if we have individual ones, so it's been really good. These guys have really I tried to get them all to fight on a regular basis on live streams and they never did. And it was ridiculous. They were all, even when it was a true, they not only were they competitors in the competition, but they even had competing products in some cases. And I'm like, tell me how bad they suck. And they're like, oh, he's such a good guy. They have a good product. I'm like literally, I was going to start cutting off live streams because it wasn't really working for me. No, but they did a great job at banding together. And we have a Slack group that we're all part of that everybody communicates on. And they've been sharing ideas for the last 3 months and asking questions and trying to figure out things. And this is the first time for a pre-day because they're actually paying for this. This isn't something that we gave them. They put their money where their mouth was and they invested and they're doing this pre-day. They're pushing all the boundaries they can to get as much as they can out of this. They realize that this is a great investment for them to do it. And so I applaud them because they took on everything. All I'm doing is I'm just a pretty face. I just show up and smile and like look good, and that's like it. So
they clearly typecast you for that as well.
I have a stunt double.
The pretty face, and then the one who goads people to a little bit of competition, maybe a little bit of trash talking, just a little.
A little. I think it's, yeah, they're welcome for that.
But so it's interesting because we talk about collaboration. I love how you said when you were involved in a startup that you would band together with people that maybe on the surface looked like competitors, but there wasn't 100% overlap, and there never is. I mean, so I love that approach. I love the abundance mindset that shows that there's plenty of business out there for everyone. So that's going to be fun to see that shake out over the next year or two or three. As each of these competitors grow and scale and make missteps and recover and all the things that is just has to do with business. So I love that.
Absolutely. And there you said something spot on. There's plenty of business. There's so much business out there. You don't have to fight and scratch against everybody. You do got to scratch and claw to get your business to grow. We know that, but you don't have to try to push a competitor out, because there's enough for all of us to find success. It's ridiculous. We have over 4,000 attendees coming to IT Nation Connect alone. I don't even know what the numbers. I mean, people are still signing up like right now. So I don't even know what the number is going to be. So hell, if you can't find business there, then you probably shouldn't even come. That's all there is to it.
All right. So if you don't have your ticket yet, Sean, that was the perfect lead in. If you're just now joining us, we are talking to one of the PitchIT finalists, Vonahi Security. They will be presenting at PitchIT at the IT Nation Connect event in 10 days, 9.5 days, Sean said. So if you don't have your ticket yet, get your ticket. It is connectwise.com/theitnation. So that is, you're going to want to have your ticket. You want to see this live. You want to watch the winner, who Vonahi is saying they're going to be the winner, and there's no contest. So if they are right, you're going to watch Vonahi walk away with a $70,000 check after they do their presentation, which is painfully short. How long is the presentation?
Jason, how long is your presentation supposed to be?
5 minutes or less.
Or less. I like it. Okay. So, man, I did the channel program pitch 2-3 months ago, and I was amazed at how quick 5 minutes goes.
Yeah.
So I would imagine there were some things that you had to cut that you felt like were super important pieces of the puzzle, or that you had to trim in a huge way. So what did you have to cut from your presentation? What is on the cutting room floor? Like maybe pieces of your presentation that were your baby, but they just weren't quite as important as some of the pieces you want to cover inside of 5 minutes.
No, that's a good point, right? Because we did the channel program PitchIT in July, right? And had to cut. So we started there, right? And we were fortunate enough to win Best PitchIT there. So that, Best Pitch there. But we had to take, a 7-minute presentation and move it down to 5 minutes, right? And also touch on points in this that you don't really touch on when you're just kind of trying to talk about your value proposition, right? But, I think most of it is, we've had to kind of take more details around the actual solution, right? Talking about how you use it, how you implement it. I think, and just kind of shrink that down, and I mean, we still can show some screenshots here and there of it, but it's really been focused on that, and then pivoting that to, Gene's really helped us kind of identify, like, really pushing forward in the pitch, the impact that we're able to create for the MSP community and and the market as a whole. So kind of pivoting that a little bit.
That's music to my ears. I love talking about the impact. That is what people are buying, is that impact, or that where am I now? Where am I going to get to? And how is Vonahi Security going to help me do that? So I love the impact. I like the impact statements. Can you give that to me? I know I'm totally putting you on the spot. What's the impact? What's your impact statement?
I mean, I think it's the impact of, the MSP and their ability to create this new revenue stream that's highly profitable, right? And serve their client need and the SMB need in a way that no, the security consulting companies can't do, right? And then the impact on the MSP and the market and from the standpoint of testing themselves, getting to do that for free, right? And so protecting the MSP and then helping the MSP protect their end client through our platform in a way that you haven't been able to do otherwise.
So you just said something that I had not considered this angle before, and maybe I'm reading a little more into what you said, but if we look at how many small and medium-sized businesses there are, let's just say in North America, and we compare that to the security consulting companies that have the ability to do a pen test, and they have a limit to how many they can do in a given month, given their staffing restrictions and just the amount of time it takes to do a pen test. Is there more demand than there is the ability to fulfill on the demand? That I heard a little hint of that just now.
I think there definitely is. I also think there's a 5.7 SMBs, right? They need it. A lot of them can't afford to do it, right? So they're kind of having to forego doing penetration testing, and they're at risk of not meeting that compliance requirement. They're certainly at risk of an attack, a breach, right? Because they're not evaluating their network. So I actually think our platform has the ability to expand the overall market, right, from where it currently sits because of that. And then, you mentioned the lack of resources. I think we saw numbers like 4 million security experts, like a deficit of 4 million, right? It does take, a tester a week or two to deliver, maybe they can do once a week, right? I mean, we've delivered 6,800 penetration tests in 2 years. Right. I mean, that would take hundreds, if not thousands of pen testers to do that in a 2-year period. And we can do it. We have a partner sign up and kick off 15 external penetration tests that day and deliver penetration testing that day.
And that's amazing from an automation standpoint. And then think about the revenue to that MSP, even if they were only charging $5,000 for a pen test, which I know is way under where the market typically would bear. Okay, right. 15 pen tests times 5. Yeah, can't even do that math. What are we at? 70,000, I think. I don't know. Whatever that number is, it's significant for the average MSP to be able to do that relatively quickly, easily, and it sounds like painlessly with the Vonahi Security platform.
And then, very, very high profit margin, right? Right. So it's automated. Our licensing models are going to allow them to deliver pen testing at, different models, but 30% the cost of a typical outsourced consulting company. And now we can deliver it on an ongoing basis, right? So lots of room for margin there. We also have other models that essentially they're paying for the whole use of the platform after their second or third pen test. So every additional one ends up being, from a gross margin standpoint, profit, right?
And okay, so we just got a comment coming in saying pen testing must be ongoing. Employees change, behaviors change, tools change, security anomalies change. I would add insurance requirements change. Right. And so this is not a once and done type of solution or type of product to sell, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think I think there's some interesting stuff too, Jason, to some of your points that one, there's a lot of MSPs who should undergo pen testing. And I think I mentioned this the last time we were on a webinar. My MSP did it because we were forced by agreement, right? Like we had a big customer who's like, you have to do this. Otherwise, like, it's not going to work. And so we did it, right? And it was worth it. We learned a ton. And I think that there's a lot of, we're talking about businesses not being able to afford it. I don't think a lot of MSPs can afford it, right? And the value of just giving it for free is incredibly powerful because of that. I also think that what we're seeing is the evolution of the MSP space, right? So maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was or maybe 3 years. They're going quick, I don't know what to say. But everyone's like, I have to be an MSSP. I'm a managed security provider, and what does it mean if you're just going to be an MSP? And I think what we're seeing is that there were some people who loved security and they wanted to become people who gave some sort of assessments, right? Like consulting assessments. Then you found other people who wanted to do pen tests. Then some people wanted to do SOC services, right? But the thing is that you still have the majority of MSPs that didn't make one of those choices, right? And while they are not maybe MSSPs, the world is changing, and security and the standards and requirements that we need to deliver as IT professionals has evolved, right? So if you look at the NOC and SOC space as a service, you're seeing a huge explosion of vendors enabling MSPs to offer that a la carte to their customers, so they don't have to build their own SOC. They don't have to become an MSSP. And I feel like this is just the beginning of that same stuff happening with pen tests, right? Where an MSP doesn't need to be an MSSP. They have to value security, right? But then they can get enabled to do that. And I think that that's also what's super compelling about their product.
Can we add in, though, the fact that there's no true definitions on what an MSSP really is, other than we know they provide security? I mean, that's truth of the matter, right? We actually went through this conversation recently, Jason and myself, with an MSP. We had a discussion about even pen testing. What's the definition of it? We know at a high level, you know what it means. It's pretty obvious, right? However, based off of different requirements and prereqs from, we talked about cybersecurity insurance, right? There's certain things that they ask for. There's certain things they don't ask for. Does this meet the needs? Is there a real definition on what the real needs are? And security at large. And you know, when you look at cybersecurity, marketing buzzwords are great and all, but they all say the same thing. You just like, we protect your data.
Right.
Great. Got that. Got it. Makes sense. We secure you. Got it. But in what way, shape, and form do you? You know, where does one product start, the other one end, and pick up the next one and the next one? Because we know there's not one product out there that does everything when it comes to cybersecurity. There's not one company or product.
Same with MSP, Sean.
Exactly.
Right? No MSP is exactly the same way, even though from a marketing perspective, they're literally selling the same thing, right?
Absolutely. But that comes back to stack alignment, right? We talk heavily about stack alignment. So if anything that PitchIT and these companies have done is given ability for MSPs to come and check when they're looking to add to their stack, to see where it fits within their alignment, to make sure they're good, you know, and cybersecurity is such an ambiguous part of this at this point.
That's a great dovetail. So Sean is on chat, and he is asking the question for the end users who perhaps aren't quite as mature, they're not quite as educated. What approach do you take to reframing their perspective from cybersecurity being this passive threat to, no, there is a clear and present danger? Could either one of you address that and maybe dovetail that into the Vonahi solution and how this can help to educate the end user that this is a clear and present danger, not something they should worry about someday down the road, next year, next quarter?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you've got the statistics, right? I think 43% of breaches are targeted to SMB, right? So, I mean, it is a real risk. A lot of SMBs have been relying on cyber insurance as the catch-all, right? Okay, if I get breached, I've got insurance. That is, you know, they're now having to do these penetration tests in order to get that renewal. So if they're not doing it, they're not able to, protect themselves through insurance as well. And I think the biggest value of pen testing over like vulnerability assessment is that we're actually showing the impact of if an attacker attacks your network, right? We're going to exploit the vulnerability, show you what if it was exploited, what the attacker could actually do, what they could gain access to. And so the outcome of that is you have to fix these things. Otherwise, if an attacker hits your network, this is the impact that it's going to cause. And that is the value of a penetration test over a vulnerability scan and why you should be doing that. And then, Jennifer, you to your point earlier, like you can use the platform to do prospecting. So you can do an external test, show them that they have this issue, and show them this is why us, the MSP, you need to work with us so that we can fix that. And then with all the changes that exist on an ongoing basis, we can't just do this once. We got to keep doing it, right? So, yeah.
So I have a quick question. You just defined there's a difference between vulnerability scan and pen test. What's the big difference? Because people will come to you guys and say you're a vulnerability scan, right? I'm sure you've heard it before.
Or they're
automate.
using other tools like,
Uh-huh.
Nessus, rapid fire tools, cyber CNS, things like that. And they're being told that's a pen test, right? And it's not, right? Those are vulnerability scans. So a vulnerability scan essentially analyzes your network for potential vulnerabilities that exist on your network, right? And they can identify, because your network looks like X, these are the potential vulnerabilities that may exist. But they're not telling you if an attacker attacks it, can I exploit those things? I think I saw something over the weekend that 90% of vulnerabilities, CVEs, are not exploitable. So that vulnerability scan is telling you that there's hundreds or thousands of vulnerabilities on your network, but you can't fix all of those. So then you have to build this plan of how to address those things. And with the pen test, we're actually going to replicate exactly how the attacker would attack your network. We're going to exploit those vulnerabilities. We're going to show you what we were able to exploit, what we weren't able to exploit, right? So we'll show you the things we tried that didn't work, right? So that's good. And then, but hey, here's the bad. Here's what we were able to get to. Could we gain access to sensitive data? Could we take over your network, right? And then, okay, so we showed that to you, but we're not here to make you look bad. We're here to say, okay, let's fix it, right? So that before an attacker actually comes and attacks your network.
Got it.
I love this. And
I mean, Sean,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. So I think, pen testers are finding the vulnerabilities, right? So like, it's like you find the vulnerabilities, right? And then it gets put to a database, and then vulnerability scanners tell people if they have the vulnerability, right? But I feel like pen testers are the ones finding those, because it's not just a scan, right? It's you're literally having hackers trying to break your thing, right? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and we're attacking an area in the network, and that it may be a low risk. I can exploit it. Now I'm on your network, but and so the vulnerabilities say, well, that was a low risk. But if I can now move across your network and get somewhere else, and now start escalating user privileges and gain access to other areas, I can actually gain access to your sensitive data, and no vulnerability scan is doing that.
Which is why it traditionally had to be done by a human. This is very highly logical. This is not like a level 1 tech support. Oh, let's reboot the computer and see if that fixes the problem.
Yeah.
Like, this is very analytical, very high level, detailed thinking, which is why I'd love to, at some point, I'd love to learn a little bit more offline about how in the world you captured the brain trust of someone who had been doing this for a decade or more, and get a glimpse of that mind map or that whiteboard or what have you, because that I cannot even imagine what that process looked like. Can you shed a little bit of light on that? Like, how did you capture the logic that happens inside of a human pen tester so that you could put that into your tool?
Yeah. So I didn't, but I personally, Alton, our founder did, right? And so he's just got all this experience doing it, and he's an open mind. He also has a development background too, right? So he has the skill set to understand how to do it, but then also how to automate, right? And so, over time, he started realizing a lot of what I'm doing here is repetitive, right? And so I can start to chain these things together. And then, it took a while, but over time, he's able to do, chain all of it together. And then from an R&D perspective, an ongoing perspective, we do, at the end of it, we're able to review the results, make sure that there's something new, what didn't exist. If it does exist, we're able to add that, automate that, add it to the platform, right? So our deliverable is always going to be a full-blown penetration test for that network. It's going to do everything a manual attacker would do. And then, and then that R&D process, make sure that we're out in front, the forefront of penetration testing and new things that come into penetration testing.
And then you mentioned this earlier, but you're also delivering mitigation strategies or some recommendations on how to resolve some of these issues.
Yeah. So any finding that we have, we'll have evidence to prove it, right? So we have a screenshot showing you, hey, we found this password document on the network chair. Here's what the proof of that is, right? And then, okay, here's how we did it. Here's what you need to do to fix it, right? And it's written in a way, right, that someone who's managing, that knows IT, is managing a network, can fix those things, right? You don't need cyber security expertise to do the remediation And so that's why really the partnership between us and the MSP is so valuable. They've got the relationship, but then they're also the ones that are working with the client to fix the problems. And so we come in and just give them a solution to identify those problems.
Amazing. And then are they designed to be presented to the end user, or are these just designed for the eyes of the MSP or MSSP?
Yeah, we've got an executive summary that's designed for the executive leadership at the end client. We have the technical report that's designed for both, so the MSP can use it, talk to the client, right? But ultimately, and present those findings. The MSP then works with them to fix those problems, or if there's an internal IT team that handles some of that too, right? But then that report is also designed for the compliance auditor or the customer, in Gene's case, that needed to proof that a pen test was done, right? So that end report, the technical report, will show that as well.
Amazing. I can already see booth traffic where people are walking up wanting to take a look at a sample report. So I would imagine that is going to be something that you have available for people to glance at and hold. There's something about that tactile feeling of holding that report in their hands. So
we're able to white label this for our partners too, and generate sample reports for the partner in their brand, right? So that's part of the sales process and then sales enablement for the partner as well. So
I love it. Awesome. So let's talk briefly. We've got about 5 minutes left. You've got a couple of different audiences that you're presenting to. Obviously, you have the judges, and they are channeling their inner MSP or their inner channel experience. But you've got to assume that there's some potential investors in the crowd as well. So how do you balance those multiple audiences in 5 minutes? That seems like a little bit of a difficult, a little difficult for you.
Yeah, we've been spending several months on that, right? We talked about that earlier. What do you cut? What do you not cut? I mean, the good thing is from, the ConnectWise, the PitchIT program perspective, they've given us criteria, right? We've got to touch on these different, so we know what to touch on for the presentation for the judges. I think the vast majority of what an investor would want to see is, what's the market problem? What are you solving? How do you solve it? Why do we care? All that, right? And then adding to it, the team and why we're going to be successful, why we're the right team to address this problem, and what's our go-to-market strategy as well. So we're building all those things into the presentation. They meet the judges' requirements, and I also think at the end of the day, the MSP wants to know, what problem are you solving and how are you going to do it, and what's the value to me as well. So I think it aligns. 5 minutes is fast though.
So I want to end with this question. Jason, this one's for you. And this is kind of your chance to speak to some possible other startups that are out there considering throwing their hat in the ring for the 2023 PitchIT. So when you look back at where you and the company, where you were, let's say 8 or 9 or 10 months ago, when you were maybe considering the entering the whole PitchIT competition, what advice would you give to people who today are in the position where you were 10 months ago?
Yeah, I mean, as far as should we join the PitchIT program and the value of that?
Yes, should we join? Are we ready? Should we wait another year?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can, if you can get accepted to the PitchIT program, you should absolutely do it. I mean, I think we may have been a little bit further along than some of the other vendors when entering it, but I still think, we got a lot of value out of the workshops themselves. We were able to, I think we knew what our value proposition was for the end client, right? And then learning more about the market drivers and what the value for the actual MSP was, which is our target market, right? And so modifying our marketing and our sales and our onboarding and all that and the messaging to really address the MSP's drivers too, right? And so I think we learned a lot about that on going through the workshops. And then, I mean, we've definitely mentioned the brand awareness that we get out of being on all these types of podcasts, and just working with the team has been, I mean, and as Sean mentioned, I mean, it's free, right? Like, other than our time, right? And I mean, you can't pay for some of the exposure that we're getting through these platforms.
Gene, anything that you want to add? You're a little bit more distant from your experience with PitchIT. What would your advice be to organizations that are thinking about entering?
Show up. Show up. I mean, that's like, if you think you have an idea, apply, right? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? No. Okay. Then can you apply the next year if you actually go through with your idea? The answer to that is yes. As far as I know, Sean, you'll have to check me on that. But I'm pretty sure if you don't get accepted, you can apply again. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, we absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't take every single applicant. We totally want as many as possible. I like to see this. We went with the number we went with for a few reasons. One, we felt like we picked the best of the crop first off to go into this. Second, wanted to make sure it was something that we could scale and give the attention needed to all the vendors without diluting it. But we're looking at next year. If things go well this year, there may be a larger investment for next year. So
Yeah.
And think about
to what I was saying, Jennifer, is like show up to the pitch contest, come to IT Nation,
Right.
be involved. Like the community needs the community to grow and to benefit. I mean, I think what you're seeing in the last few years as ConnectWise has evolved the PitchIT program is something that like was off on a weird main stage before with not really any advertisement to what we have here today. And it's been formalized. A lot of energy is put into it to deliver results to the participants and to the community. And the more that we as a community support the newer tools, apps, software companies, the better it will be for all of us. Again, shameless plug, think if you had free pen testing for every MSP, wouldn't the world be a safer place?
Amazing. What a great way to end. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait to see all of you pitch, see who wins. I know everybody thinks they're going to win. I have an opinion. I'm not going to share it publicly. If you pay me enough, I may share it with you privately. But I do have a feeling that I know who's going to walk away with the win. But we'll see. We'll see if that comes true. Thank you guys so much for your time. I will see you next week in Orlando.
Nice.
Take care.
Okay.
Thanks all.